we got more work to do than think about changes. So, but those documents don't exist. You create it for a system that has a very limited short shelf life. Hopefully this will help the superintendent articulate the need for the replacement of SAYs faster than earlier than later. And what I'm hearing is one of the requirements must be written into the documentation. One of the requirements must be documentation. You know, it's so easy to, well, that costs $200,000, so let's not do it. That $200,000 would save 250 or 500 people's frustration, which is a lot more than that $200,000.
May I say that the technical documentation should not just be for the vendors. It needs to be for us as well, because we are the watchdog of the vendors.
Well, when I'm saying one set of technical documentation.
We go out and we make sure that what you said you want done is what the system is actually doing for us.
I agree. And another problem we've had, our IT department's pretty short, not a big department. No blaming, it's just a reality for what they're expected to do. It blows my mind that there's nobody there even working on SAYs. So we're taking things out of other programs to put them onto SAYs, just to get it stabilized. Because there was no, the problem with government and grants, so you know, is people take the grant, you build it, then okay, you have to stay working forever. There is no sustainment, and that's the problem we have. There's no sustainment in a lot of the systems we have. We need to fix that, and I don't know what the challenges to that is. I'm not saying the past administration didn't have any good answers. Maybe it's just too hard of a question. But we are talking with the governor's office and the different teams that we work with. That whatever grant we use, we need sustainment. We don't build something that falls apart, and that includes people. The system to be replaced after a period of time, not 13 years, and documentation. I think I got that loud and clear, and I appreciate that. Who brought that up? The documentation. That's so simple to forget, and that is exactly what's missing. You wouldn't be as frustrated, and I agree the documentation is not just for the vendors. It's for you to work with the vendors.
When ADA came out with unaccompanied youth 2 years ago, unaccompanied youth is a form of homeless or make an evento student. They said nothing about primary nighttime residence. It was never in the business rules. We can't submit unaccompanied youth now because it doesn't have the primary nighttime residence. The only way I got that was by sending an email from myself to Frank McGowie, who actually said, yes, we do want primary nighttime residence. That was never in any of the business documentation. And I don't think that we're getting that data submitted by the schools because we just don't have the complete information.
Well, I just don't, wow.
Now, part of this is priorities. If people care about education, when I was in the legislature, nobody ever came up to me and did this to me and said, if you don't get this computer system fixed, you don't care about education. We were aware there was generally something, but it was like a lot of systems were loaded and everybody's complaining, so it didn't stand out. Nobody ever did a real jolt. Every one of you should know who your 2 representatives are, who your senators are, and you should go up to them and give them a jolt. And the jolt should be something like this. You don't have the money this year, but I expect you to get that computer system solved. If you really are serious about caring about education, we need a state-of-the-art computer system. It will save real resources at the schools and school districts. It will help with people knowing where their students are. It is right at the core ground zero of supporting that high-performing classroom. So you all should be jolting your 2 representatives and your senators too in this process.
I have a question. My question has to do with growth. Having not seen 40th Day and now hearing aggregation is going to be in March, typically by the end of February, those of us that have growth are getting those. So is that going to be delayed? Because I know my district needs the funds that we get from growth. And so that's my question.
So yeah, I mean, we don't have the data to really calculate the growth for you either, but as soon as we have it, I guess we'll give it to you. In terms of whether you're going to lose that capacity for it or even the state aid, you will not, because we will give you that time to to adjust it and fix it.
So more than likely by our May 15th, we should probably, we're hoping to have the growth.
Well, the plan, as Mark mentioned, March 21st or March 28th, we will have education, so we should have growth by then.
And my second question will be in regards to next year, because we won't have 40th day and 100th day. Have you determined how growth is going to be decided at what point?
And that's being discussed among the group, because really the statute did not address that. So historically it was after the 100th day, so it would make sense it's after the point census day, which is March 15th. So that's what we're going with, but we'll take input and then we'll decide.
Thank you.
Well, oops, we got another one.
So are you saying that as far as what will be required next year for actually uploading SACE data, it's just going to be 2, 3, 4 set points during the calendar year, and then everybody gets it uploaded by then so that it all can be aggregated and that process can be completed?
Really, we're still discussing how that's going to play. We're not there yet. I will talk late, after when my time comes to talk. I will go over a summary of where we at with the process, and I'll give summary what we get to do to address all of these issues. But we are discussing all these scenarios, and we will come up with a way to do it. And we'll get your input as we do this.
Thank you again for coming out. There are two sides to the attendance. There is the actual upload of the attendance.
Yousef, I think.
From the other side, which is the financial side. And I watch those numbers very, very closely because that impacts how much money I get. I appreciate what he said, that it doesn't make sense to upload redundant data, but I have great concern that if there's no requirement for the 20-day, it starts slipping and slipping and down to the end, and then all of a sudden I'm hit with a very reduced financial flow income. So rather than upload redundant data, if you kept the 20-day but just had them do a checkbox, no changes, and then it's a very tiny upload of data, but yet they're held to some kind of accountability, because I just worry that I'm going to be hit financially because the numbers are going to go down and I'm not aware of it until well into the year.
I think that was part and parcel. In the end, we committed to go back and reviewing the 20 days very carefully. We need to understand all the ramifications, and we may do some kind of staggered or scheduling kind of thing, but we'll take a look at that.
When you're working on your increase in communications via Facebook or whatever way you choose to do that, and thank you so much, by the way, for that.
Some money on that. $50 to join.
Could you include making public the list of open tickets, or at least the ones that are likely to affect multiple districts? Very often what happens now, for instance, preschool assessments on children who have a service type PA1 are failing. I spent close to a week looking at all of my preschool students that were failing and finding commonalities and figuring out what was probably wrong. And when I called in, I got, oh yeah, that's ticket number whatever. So I think it would make people extremely happy if we had a problem. If we could just look and see that the problem was already being worked out.
That's a good question, and it's a good point. Again, I come from an enterprise where customers open a ticket, they can see the ticket, and they can see the progress. And if there's no progress, they used to button it. The challenge with ours is we have a very inexpensive ticket system because it was cheap, not necessarily good. Sometimes you spend more money to get something that's better for the customer. If you have such a decentralized customer that we have, we need a couple things. We need a better web interface to talk to the customer, and we need a better ticketing system, and this is something that my team is researching that we haven't brought to the superintendent yet and said I need some funding for this. But we do want to realize that we want a ticketing system that is not... Right now we have two, let me tell you how dysfunctional. I don't like to just share, but I just might as well. We have two ticketing systems. The one that you call in and then the one that goes to the developer. And that's stupid because the developer decides what the heck he wants to work on. And that's being changed. I'm about ready to sneeze. I'm going to have one ticketing system that the customer can see and has an interface. It has an interface all the way through the system, so that we have a team that's called SACE Run and Build, and there's a program manager, and this just happened the last 2 weeks, so they're not very good at it. I sit in the meeting, but they're learning, is that they will prioritize based on the urgency of the ticket. And what is the urgency of the ticket? Does it impact 3,000 people? That's an urgency. If it impacts one, it goes back to the bottom of the list. Right now, the list is pretty low. So I'm trying to tackle the top 10 at a time while doing an aggregation build and trying to keep the system stable. But I hope you guys, the next time I come to this meeting, and I'll come often, I love feedback like this, is to see if we're making progress. Because it's easy for me to think I'm making progress. You'll tell me whether I'm making progress.
We serve a district that serves students, quite a large number of students that transfer from BIE schools. And as you're looking to the future of SACE, are you in discussions with BIE to share data? That impacts us specifically when it comes to the accountability measures. About 60% of our incoming junior high students come from BIE schools. They don't share AIM scores between the two agencies, so those students are not eligible to be counted for growth points in our accountability measures.
The Bureau of Indian Education?
Bureau of Indian Education.
No. So if and I don't think, I think we'd have to have Roberta Smalley or Robert Franciosi with us here, but I think it also gets down into the data processing. What you're saying is BIE schools are not transferring their student data over, or? Okay, so what we have to do is contact them. So we have some people here taking notes, and we will try to make those contacts and to assess that situation.
I am working with the Navajo Nation, I don't know what Indian, Dr. White, and we are in beginning conversations, but there are some rules. I'm not smart enough to even stand up here and talk about this. This is very complex. But I know there are some things that there's beginning dialogue on this subject, and we figured we'd have the dialogue with the Navajo Nation because it's so large. Did you hear me back there? I used to be in theater and I could hit the back of the audience without a mic. So go ahead, please.
Okay, and this is just another comment on the 20-day thing. But this is for everyone here as well. I know that some of the concern is, well, if we get rid of that requirement, then districts are going to fall behind. But we have to, as a district, accept responsibility for our own data submissions. We can't blame the state because they didn't tell us that we have to do this. So let's do our part. The state has their responsibility to make us regulatory, to regulate us to the law, and we have to have our own responsibility. So for example, if your data people aren't doing it often enough as you need, you can tell them, I need this data, you need to do it. And if they say, well, the state didn't make me do it, that's a discussion with the supervisor if it's not you. So that's some of our own control that we have to take back on our side. We don't need to put that responsibility on the state to cuff us to something that we'll get an audit hit for because we didn't take our own responsibility into our own hands.
And you're starting to get to the core of an issue that goes to I am a local control and local responsibility person. And I have thought, but everybody that gets in the legislature, they want to get on the control panel. They want to run the ship. And my philosophy was this line that circle around a school district, I don't want to cross that line. The closest I got to crossing that line was to say, your school board has to consider this issue. So I would do mandates for consideration. And I felt like that was the proper relationship between the center and the district. We have ideas. At the center, we can do a lot of research, and instead of that research being duplicated 220 times, we'll send this to you once. You have to vote on this. You don't have to vote yes. You can modify it. You can do whatever you want, but you have to consider the idea. But I think your comments there sort of epitomize where we would like to end up at, treating everybody like adults And you're competing in the marketplace, and if you don't do a good job of supporting your teachers, running good classrooms, doing the best, then you're going to lose your students. So that's the accountability. And we're going to flood the marketplace with information about, about how your school's doing, but we're all adults.
The one thing I want to, I absolutely agree with you. However, I just want to say that